Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Krishna Hare Ram
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Who is reading today? Harinam Kirtan Prabhuji. Yeah, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Prabhu. Little voice less, Prabhu, but I can hear.
It's better now?
Yeah. Yeah, you can try, Prabhu. I'll check for a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskar Naram Jivanam Devi Saraswati Sankito Jayamudire. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतं सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्ति नष्टति. Hare Krishna, we are reading from Canto 2, chapter 6, text 26 onwards. Purusha, the chapter name is Purusha Shukta Confirmed. Text 26. Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes. Text 27. Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead by invocation of the demigods' names. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. Text 28. Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. Text 29. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the master of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Text 30. Thereafter, the Manus, the father of mankind, the great sages, the forefather, the learned scholars, the Daitya, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Text 31. All the material manifestation of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Text 32. By his will I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself in his eternal form, as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these 3 energies. Text 33. My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained it to you, and you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as a cause or an effect, both in the material and spiritual world, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 34. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Text 35. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and I am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, And although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Text 36. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So, what can others do when the Lord Himself is unable to estimate His own limits? Text 37. Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability. Let us offer our respect to our senses and to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnation and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. Text 39. That Supreme Original Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates this manifested cosmos. But he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu. You finished the last verse, right? True, 39th verse. Okay, so
Yes,
we can.
please.
Yeah, sure, perfect. Yeah. So let me start with prayers. Om Ajnanasmirantasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namah Namah Vishupataya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Distarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktabunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let me. So we're in the second canto, 6th chapter. What we're discussing is about Narada and Lord Brahma conversing with themselves. And there's a conversation referred by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. When Parikshit Maharaj was asking questions about creation, how Supreme Lord does the creation through the expansions, like that he was asking. Then Sukadeva Goswami referred to this conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. And in that conversation, in the previous chapter, Narada Muni asked 6 questions, primarily focused on how the creation is happening, how everything is coming from Supreme Lord, what is the shelter and dependence of the universe. Like that, he asked different questions. So, and we remember from last chapter also, Narada Muni asked, I thought you were the Supreme because you are doing everything. Is there somebody greater than you because you are meditating on someone? Then Brahma immediately, humbly and truthfully, honestly, clarified that doubt, saying that I'm actually only recreating whatever the Supreme Lord has already created. I'm not doing something extra or new like that. After telling that, he started describing how the universe creation happens, the primary creation of the Karna Srishti happens, where the material elements are created, and then how further creation happens. That's what he described so far. And then now he started to describe how Supreme Lord is the cause for everything, material cause and efficient cause of everything, like that he started to describe. So within that particular section, where Supreme Lord is the material cause of everything, that is the section we are in. So today's section will have three broad sections. One is how Supreme Lord is the cause of everything, and then how Supreme Lord is the shelter of everything in the universe. Supreme Lord is universe is dependent on Supreme Lord. two themes. The third theme is about how Supreme Lord cannot be known completely in full, because Supreme Lord is unlimited. However, we should glorify Him with whatever we know, like that. Okay, so that is the overall section. Now we'll go to each verses. So text number 26 onwards. Text number, basically, if you remember, in the previous verses from a discussion yesterday, Krishna Prabhu was describing, he described during the process of creation, how from Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, Virat Rupa manifests, Virat Rupa form of the Lord manifests, and then Lord Brahma is taking all the sacrificial ingredients from the body of the Supreme Lord in the form of Virat Rupa only. That means he's trying to prove that everything is coming from Supreme Lord only. That's what he's trying to prove. And then after telling that, yeah. So what are the other, in the 26th verse he's describing, what are the other necessities for a sacrifice to be performed? Like a Vedic hymns. Earlier he described how the different clarified butter, honey, utensils, grains are required for fire sacrifice. Now he's describing how different names of demigods are invoked during the fire sacrifice, and it's a scientific process done like that. He's describing. So the purport, Prabhupada is clarifying something, two important themes. One is the whole process of sacrifice itself is scientifically described in the Vedic scriptures. Scientific because the performer will gradually elevate his consciousness through the obedience to scriptures, through the obedience of Vedic regulations, through the obedience to Brahmanas, through the association of Brahmanas, they'll gradually elevate it to higher place, like that is described. That's one thing Prabhupada points out. Second thing Prabhupada points out is, in the current age of Kali, it's very difficult to get the pure ingredients for sacrifice, are the very highly qualified Brahmanas to do such sacrifices. So for that reason, and because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally told us that Sankirtan Yajna, or chanting of the holy name, is the best sacrifice we can perform in this age, Prabhupada is encouraging us to do that sacrifice of chanting of the holy name as a primary necessity for this age, like that. And so he also says that advancement of material science is only increasing the artificial necessities of life, but not necessarily solving the real problems of life, like birth, death, old age, and disease. So these problems will be solved only through process of spirituality, and especially by practicing the chanting of the whole name in this particular age, like that he is describing. That's it. So basically, while we are going through this section, we should understand that everything is coming from the Lord, and everything has its perfection when we engaging them back in the service of the Lord. That one thing we can understand. And another practical lesson we can understand is our main aim, because everything came from Supreme Lord, including ourselves. So we need to engage ourselves in the process given by the Lord, which is chanting of the whole name for this age, like that. Now going to the 27th verse, he's saying, interestingly, is concluding, Brahma is concluding, like that I got all the ingredients from the Supreme Lord's personal form only, number one. And then that means Prabhupada has been emphasizing that Lord is not impersonal. Lord is a personal form, like that. Sorry, my mouth is getting dry, but I cannot think what, because I'm going for a medical procedure today. So let's go. So that is one portion is describing Brahma. What is that? That Lord is personal, and from his form only he took all the ingredients. That is one part. Second point is, he's saying, remember in the previous verse he talks about, he invoked the names of demigods for sacrifices. Even though they're invoking the names of demigods, the purpose of that is actually to approach the Supreme Lord with the demigods as representatives, and through that the ultimate goal of Vishnu is gradually attained, and then ultimate offerings are complete because they are trying to approach Supreme Lord himself, not the demigods who are intermediary representatives who are accepting on behalf of Supreme Lord, like that. This is the second point. Brahma is describing this verse. Now going to the 20th verse. So he is describing after he obtains all the ingredients, what did he do? He performs the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. So if you notice, that is the common theme that will come out in the next few verses. Basically, sacrifice is meant to please Krishna. Everything what we are doing in devotion service is also meant to please Krishna. We need to remember that. Then Prabhupada in purport is clarifying that to obtain peace for ourselves and peace in the world, two important things are needed: sacrifice and austerity, because both are prescribed by Supreme Lord. Remember in Bhagavad Gita also we hear Yagna Dana Tapa should never be given up like that. In the beginning of 17th chapter and 18th chapter also is described. Yagna Dana Tapa should never be given up like that. So basically, and then he says, everybody is doing sacrifice somehow or other. What is sacrifice? He is describing as dedication of our own interest for satisfaction of a second person. But Prabhupada is saying, based on the authority of Brahma, that just by satisfying the other people is not the goal. When you satisfy the Supreme Lord Krishna, then everybody can be peaceful. Because when Supreme Lord is satisfied, everybody else can be satisfied like that. That doesn't mean we need to neglect our duties. We need to see all our duties in relation to Krishna. Number one, that means we should see our family members are representatives of Krishna, parts and parts of Krishna. So we are doing service to Krishna by taking care of them physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That is one aspect. Second aspect is we still carve out some time, energy, and enthusiasm for practicing spirituality for our life also. That's so we can engage in the proper sacrifice to please Krishna. And the austerity, what's the austerity? Prabhupada doesn't touch about austerity in this particular purport much, but we hear in other purports, Prabhupada says the austerity that we take care is practicing spiritual life, the principles nicely, in different circumstances, whatever we are in. Well, that means doing our chanting and hearing every day, doing our reading and deity worship every day, and doing our services every day nicely. That's all comes into doing austerity. Prabhupada commonly tells the austerity as chanting a fixed number of rounds, like 16 rounds most devotees do, and then following the 4 regulatory principles. Like that, he describes as the austerities that we perform in devotion service. Of course, the ultimate principle is following the orders of a spiritual master. Now, going to the 29th verse, now he says, after he personally performed the sacrifice for the satisfaction of Krishna, he says his sons, Narad Muni is one of the sons, and he has other 9 sons also. Examples are like Shiva, Kumaras, like that. All of them also perform the sacrifice to satisfy Krishna. It's described to satisfy both manifested personalities and non-manifested personalities. Prabhupada describes the manifested personalities are the demigods who are representing Krishna, and the unmanifested is Supreme Lord Krishna himself. So they worship, there is a sacrifice to please both of them. But then Prabhupada comes to saying that modern men, they don't want to believe anything they don't see. But we are supposed to understand and have faith and believe things that are given in scriptures. Because in this life, in the Kali Yuga, even the demigods are also not manifest. Supreme Lord did not manifest previously also. Now, demigods are also not manifest. So, only when we qualify ourselves with devotion service, we can perceive the presence of Krishna like that. Prabhupada. Now, text 30. So, after he performs the sacrifice, after his sons perform the sacrifice, rest of the great personalities also perform sacrifice. Who are they? Manus, sages, forefathers, daityas, like that, they all perform sacrifices to please Krishna. And Prabhupada writes, because all these great personalities realize their spiritual identity as part and parcel of Supreme Lord, that's why they give more importance to spiritual emancipation than material enjoyment, like that, or material comforts. So we can also learn to give higher value, higher priority to spiritual sadhana in our life. Now, text 31, he says, all the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in Supreme Lord's powerful material energies. So basically, the point Prabhupada is clarifying in the purport is that Supreme Lord is so powerful that he does not need to do anything, but still he does through his energies. Through his energies, he is doing everything, including maintenance also. Not only creation through Brahma, annihilation through Shiva, and maintenance he personally takes charge with as his expansion. Now going to 32. Now he says, by his will, I Brahma create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself maintains this cosmos. He is the powerful controller of all the three energies, like that he's saying. So basically, everything in material world and spiritual world is maintained by the energies and expansions of Krishna. That is one main point coming out here. And then another point Prabhupada is emphasizing here is that no one is equal to or greater than Krishna. Sometimes impersonalists only focus on the oneness with Krishna, whereas we devotees not only know the oneness with Krishna, but we know about the personal form of Krishna, and we put faith in the personal form of Krishna, like that he is describing. Now text 33. Here is concluding the section of how Supreme Lord is the cause of everything. He's saying, what are you inquired from me? I told you all the answers now. So whatever there is, either as cause, as effect, both in the material spiritual world, is dependent on the Supreme Lord. Because this is a common principle described in the various scriptures. I'll explain briefly. Let us say something is causing something. For example, we saw in the previous chapter how during the creation, in the 5th chapter, let me go back there, if I can see quickly. If not, I can go. Basically, from each sense object, how different sense devatas, for example, sound is a sense object. And from that, one material element, ether comes. From ether, touch comes. From touch, air comes, like that we heard in the last chapter. So, sound is the cause, ether is the effect. And ether is the cause, and the touch is the effect. Touch is the cause, and air is the effect. So, basically, from Supreme Lord is causing something with his energies, and that becomes a cause for something else as effect. That becomes a cause of something else, basically. In that sense, Krishna is the original cause of all causes. Like that, we can understand that. Sometimes the devotees are confused when they hear the term cause of all causes. That means I'm not able to chant, that is because of Krishna only. I mean, Krishna is not making me chant. And I'm able to chant, that means Krishna is making me chant only. Like that, they fixate even the little freedom we have, they attribute to Krishna only. Of course, Krishna has to sanction for that little activity to happen. But there's 5 factors of action, like we hear in Bhagavad Gita also. The point here is, Supreme Lord is the cause of everything, whether the material ingredients that we see, and as a sanctioning authority is the cause of every activity that's happening. And we have a part to play with our free will, with the right desires that we can cultivate like that. Now going to this verse. Yeah. So 34th verse is a beautiful verse. Actually, this is the verse and purport that we can read today. Okay. In the 34th verse, Lord Brahma is saying something wonderful. He's saying, because I've taken shelter of Krishna's lotus feet with great eagerness, great zeal, that is why whatever I do with my body actions, whatever I do with whatever I think with my mind, or whatever I speak with my words, they can never go wrong, he's saying. Is he proud? He's not showing his proud in this verse. He's saying, because he took shelter of Krishna, Krishna is empowering him. Krishna is protecting his actions, words, and thought also, he's saying. There's an effect on pure devotees. So when we take shelter of Krishna, Krishna empowers our actions, thoughts, and speech in such a way they can lead to perfect service to Krishna. So that's why as devotees, whenever we're doing any service, we pray to Krishna for the empowerment. Only, and we try to develop purity, because by doing sadhana purely, then we can develop purity. And as we become pure, Krishna will influence our actions, words, and thought more and more. That is why when pure devotees say, may you become nice devotee, may you always remember Krishna, or may you go back to Krishna in this life. When they say that, the words are not ordinary words. Those are real, proper blessings. And Krishna will empower those words, because Krishna always protects his devotees. So that is why whenever we get blessings from a saintly personality like a pure devotee, you should be very happy and grateful for the blessings, because whatever comes from their mouths is a blessing for us. It's called Vachaka blessing in nectar devotion or Bhakti Samsung also. So that's what being highlighted in the purport by Prabhupada also. So when we engage in devotion service to Krishna, Krishna will protect us. So that way we don't get deviated easily like that. So our lesson from this is two things. First of all, we need to practice devotion service nicely, take shelter of Krishna. That way, our actions, words, and speech is in line with Krishna's service and is empowered to assist others to serve in the mission of Krishna. That's one. Second aspect is, when we seek shelter of pure devotees, we understand that they are acting with the empowerment from Krishna directly. So that way, we can be grateful and in the mood of service towards the pure devotees. Now going to the next verse, 35th verse. So this verse onwards, the next section starts where Brahmaji is saying, actually Supreme Lord is big, infinite. His glories are unlimited. So we cannot understand him so easily. So, but still we need to glorify him with whatever we know. That is the whole essence of this section. Now we'll go to the individual verses. That fifth verse, he says, actually people know me as great Brahma, and I'm perfect in disciple succession in Vedic wisdom. I have a lot of Vedic knowledge, and I'm good at austerities, and expert in mystic powers also, and self-realization also. And I'm recognized like that by great forefathers also, who offer me respectful obeisances. Even though everybody knows that I'm so great, everybody thinks I'm so great, but still I cannot understand Krishna fully, like that is describing. So, one important lesson Prabhupada writes in the purport for this. We can understand Krishna only by developing some eagerness to serve Krishna in devotional mode. Only through that we can understand Krishna. So we need to strive for eagerness of sincere mood of eagerness in serving Krishna and serving Vaishnavas. Only through that we can understand somewhat about Krishna, like that. That's the important lesson for us in this purport. So, yeah. And then only through devotion service one can know Krishna by his mercy. That's another point Prabhupada writes in the purport. And the third point Prabhupada makes is, Srimad Bhagavatam is the absolute medium by which we can understand Krishna, like that. Because we are hearing from few devotees, now we are hearing from Brahma's prayers, who is Krishna? Krishna is the cause of all causes. Everything came from Krishna, like that we are hearing, right? That's how we can understand Krishna somewhat. Now 36th verse, now he says, because I cannot understand him fully, what is the best thing I'm supposed to do? Best thing I'm supposed to do is to surrender to Krishna, surrender to lotus feet of Krishna. And that surrender removes all miseries and is all auspicious also. And that way we can pursue all spiritual happiness, like that is described. So now in the purport, Prabhupada emphasizes on spiritual happiness, which is the topic of the next verse also. Basically, in the material life, when you engage senses with sense objects, you will get some satisfaction, some happiness, but that's not permanent, that's only temporary, right? But here, in the spiritual life, spiritual happiness is called Anandamburi Vardhanam. That means ocean of happiness that is ever increasing. That's the greatness of spiritual happiness. That's not temporary, but permanent and eternally ever increasing, like that. That's what Brahmaji is describing. When do we get that? When we engage in devotion service to the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Now 37th verse. Yeah. He's saying, neither Lord Shiva, nor you, Narada Muni, nor I, Brahma, can ascertain the limits of that spiritual happiness. Because the spiritual happiness is so much, and because we are all divided by Maya Shakti of the Lord, we can only see his manifested cosmos according to our limited individual ability, like that is saying. So, basically, the point here is saying is, you need to take shelter of Krishna, understanding that we cannot understand the limits of Krishna or the limits of spiritual happiness. So, two more verses for today. 38th verse. He's saying, let us offer obeisance to Supreme Lord, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. That means somebody might say, oh, you know what? We cannot know Krishna in full. So if I glorify him little, that means I'm bringing him down. I'm limiting him. Some people have this wrong argument that because I cannot glorify fully, I should not glorify at all. This is the wrong conception of 0%, 100% logic, I say. This is born of mode of passion. Either I don't do anything or I do 100% perfectly. I don't want to do 30%. That's the wrong logic. Anything we do in spiritual life is better than nothing, better than 0%. So he's saying, with whatever we know, we can glorify Supreme Lord like that. This is also important principle. Some people think, until I learn whole of Bhagavad Gita, whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, I cannot share anything with my friends that, oh, you should do this devotion service, this is nice. Because they might question me, why are you saying like that? And I may not be able to answer it properly. Like that people think. No, we can say, I'm learning little bit. Whatever I learned little bit, I'm telling you. I don't have full answers for everything. But I understood that in this age, chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare is the best thing I learned. So let us chant like that. We can tell them. We don't need to know all the answers. Maybe they'll ask a question that we don't answer. We can tell them, I'm still learning. If I find out the answer from my senior, I'll tell you. Okay. Otherwise, I don't know right now, but I'm learning. Thank you. Like that, we can say always. So next one, that was the 30th verse. Basically, actually 30th verse purport, Prabhupada says, as the senses are progressively purified in devotional service, then the Lord reveals his identity according to our advancement in devotional service, like that. So we can please the Lord by earnest devotional service, like that. So through that only, by chanting Hare, we can please Krishna and we can know Krishna. So the last verse for today, he's explaining in this verse that, let me see, one more thing. Yeah, he's explaining in this verse the answer to the fourth question of Narad Muni from previous chapter, which was, how is the universe conserved or annihilated, like that? Then he's describing, when the universe is annihilated, then it goes back to the belly or the abdomen of the Supreme Lord as Mahavishnu, like that he's describing. Actually, that is called as both annihilation and conservation. Why? Because after annihilation of universe, it's being conserved or preserved in the body of Mahavishnu. That is why it's called. That's why he's saying that Supreme Lord is a shelter. Even after annihilation, Supreme Lord is a shelter for the universe. Like that he's describing basically. Basically, universe is conserved in the Supreme Lord only. Overall, in this section, now I'm summarizing it briefly. Overall, in this section, we learned that Supreme Lord is the basis of everything and anything we see, including our own selves, our own strengths, abilities, skills, and the resources we have around us. Everything is coming from Krishna. When we have that knowledge, it's not theoretical knowledge. That knowledge should inspire us to serve him with gratitude, with eagerness, with enthusiasm. So when we are engaged in service to Krishna through chanting and hearing, then Krishna is pleased and we can know more about Krishna and we can be peaceful, we can be happy, and we can achieve the spiritual happiness that is ever increasing, like that. That is the essence of section today. We'll pause here. We'll continue tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpa sarvabhyasya kupasandu bhyavacha pajanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.